The morning sun rose over the crystal fields of Kepler 442b, painting the sky in soft purple hues. The Velathi farmers moved slowly through their crops, their tall, graceful bodies swaying like dancing trees. Their skin shimmered with a natural crystal coating that caught the light beautifully. For 300 years, this world had known only peace. Counselor Theralyn stood on her balcony, watching the farmers tend to their glowing crops. The Velathi had built their civilization on harmony with nature. They ate only plants, fought no wars, and solved problems through long discussions and careful thought. Their cities grew from the ground like living trees, and their technology worked with biology instead of against it. Everything changed when the sky turned black. The first sign was the birds. Every flying creature on the planet suddenly stopped, singing and fell silent. Then the crystal plants began to dim, their natural glow fading as if something was draining the life from them. Theralyn looked up at the sky and saw something that made her blood freeze. Dark shapes were moving between the stars. Not ships as the Velathi knew them, but living things the size of mountains. They pulsed with a sickly red light and moved through space like swimming sea creatures. As they came closer, the air itself seemed to grow heavy and wrong. "Counselor!" A young Velathi ran into her chamber, his crystal skin flickering with fear. "The orbital sensors are detecting massive biosignatures, hundreds of them. They're not from any known species." Theralyn rushed to the communication center in the heart of their tree city. Other council members were already there, their usually calm faces twisted with worry. The main screen showed space around their world, and what they saw made everyone gasp. The dark shapes were ships, but not like any ships in the galaxy. They were alive, massive creatures with thick, armored skin and weapons that looked like body parts. Some had tentacles that sparked with electricity. Others had mouths full of metal teeth. They moved in perfect coordination, like parts of one giant mind. "What are they?" whispered Council Member Veltar. The answer came from their military advisor, General Kethmon, the only Velathi who had ever served in the Galactic Defense Corps. His face was pale as snow. "Razak," he said quietly. "The Swarm." Everyone in the room knew that name. Children learned about the Razak in their history lessons, about the worlds that had simply vanished, leaving nothing but empty space and scattered debris. The Razak were a nightmare that civilized species told stories about, hoping they would never be more than stories. "How many worlds have they taken?" Theralyn asked. 12 this year, Kethmon replied. "They consume everything, not just the people, but the plants, the animals, even the soil and water. They leave nothing behind." On the screen, the bioships began to spread out, surrounding their world like hungry predators circling prey. Each ship was the size of a city, and there were so many that they blocked out the stars. "What defenses do we have?" asked another council member. Kethmon laughed, but there was no humor in it. 3 patrol boats and a cargo defense system. "Against this?" He pointed at the screen. "We might as well throw flowers at them." The first attack came without warning. Streams of acid shot down from the bioships, burning through their orbital stations like they were made of paper. The defense satellites tried to fight back, but their energy weapons barely scratched the living armor of the Razak ships. Then the real attack began. Smaller creatures, each the size of a house, began dropping from the larger ships. They fell through the atmosphere like living meteors, their bodies glowing hot from the friction. When they hit the ground, they immediately began to change, growing. Legs and weapons and acidic mouths. The communication center filled with panicked voices as reports came in from across the planet. The creatures were everywhere, attacking farms, cities, and even the underground shelters. They moved fast and worked together like parts of a machine. "Send a distress call to the Galactic Council," Theralyn ordered. "Already done," replied their communications officer. No response. "The nearest council fleet is 3 months away." "What about other species? Anyone closer?" The officer checked his instruments. "The Zenthari have ships 2 weeks out, but they're refusing to engage. They say the Razak are too dangerous. The Moltec Empire won't even answer our calls." Theralyn felt despair growing in her chest. This was how it always went with the Razak. They were so dangerous that even military species were afraid to fight them. The Swarm had learned and adapted to every weapon and tactic the galaxy had used against them. They were impossible to stop. Wait, the communications officer said suddenly. I'm getting something strange. There's a ship approaching from the outer system. Fast. Really fast. Council ships? Kethmon asked hopefully. No, sir. The signature is unknown. I've never seen anything like it. It's broadcasting on old frequency bands that nobody uses anymore. On the screen, a new dot appeared, moving toward their world at incredible speed. It was much smaller than the Razak bioships, but something about it seemed different, more solid, more real. Are they responding to our distress call? Theralyn asked. The communications officer worked at his controls. Yes, ma'am. They're asking for our tactical situation and they want to know if we have any information about species called humans. Everyone in the room looked confused. Nobody had ever heard of humans before. What should I tell them? The officer asked. Before Theralyn could answer, General Kethmon stepped forward. Tell them yes. Tell them anything they want to hear. If they're willing to help, I don't care if they're from the darkest corner of the galaxy. The communications officer sent the message. A few minutes later, they received a reply that made everyone stare at the screen in confusion. They say they are humans, the officer reported. From something called Earth. They're asking us to evacuate our people, to underground shelters and stay away from the surface. They say they're going to handle the situation. Handle the situation? Veltar laughed nervously. One small ship against a Razak swarm? They must be insane. But Theralyn was looking at the tactical display. The human ship was still accelerating, moving faster than anything should be able to move, and there was something about its course that worried her. It wasn't trying to avoid the Razak ships. It was heading straight for them. Get our people to the shelters, she ordered. All of them, now. But, Counselor, if these humans fail, then we'll be no worse off than we were before, Theralyn said firmly. But something tells me these humans are not like other species. Look at their ship. Look at how they move. They're not running away. As the evacuation began, Theralyn watched the screen. The human ship was getting closer to the Razak swarm, and she could see more details now. It was made of metal and sharp angles, unlike the flowing organic designs that most species preferred. It looked like it was built for one purpose: war. The Razak bioships had noticed the newcomer too. Several of them were turning to face the human vessel, their weapon mouths opening with hungry anticipation. They had destroyed thousands of ships before. One more would be easy. But as Theralyn watched, she realized something that made her crystal skin tingle with a strange new feeling. Hope. The human ship wasn't slowing down. It wasn't trying to talk. It wasn't looking for a diplomatic solution. It was coming to fight. In the depths of space, the unknown ship from Earth continued its approach, and for the first time since the Razak had arrived, Theralyn began to believe that maybe, just maybe, someone had finally come to end this nightmare once and for all. Commander Kang Dae-ho stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching the tactical display with cold, calculating eyes. The ship was moving through space at maximum burn, its fusion engines pushing them toward the Kepler 442 system faster than any vessel in the known galaxy could travel. Distance to target? He asked without taking his eyes off the screen. 18 hours at current speed, replied Lieutenant Park Soo-jin from the weapons station. Her fingers danced over the controls, running system checks on every gun, missile, and defensive system the ship carried. The Razak bioships are already in orbit around the planet. Looks like they're just getting started. Dae-ho nodded grimly. The Indomitable was part of Earth's colonial defense fleet, tasked with protecting human settlements and responding to threats in this sector of space. They had been on patrol when the alien distress call came through on the old emergency frequencies. Most species in the galaxy used quantum communication networks that were fast but limited to known contacts. Humans still used radio waves and other primitive methods that could reach anyone, anywhere. It was considered backward by galactic standards, but it meant humans often heard distress calls that other species missed. Sir, called communications. Officer Lee Nare from her station. I'm getting more information from the planet's surface. The aliens call themselves Velathi, plant eaters. No military to speak of. They're completely defenseless against this attack. How many Razak ships? Daeho asked. Park Soo-jin checked her sensors. I count 47 bioships in the large category, hundreds of smaller attack forms. They've already started landing ground forces. She paused, looking at her readings, with disbelief. Sir, according to our database, this is the largest Razak force ever recorded. Good, Daeho said simply. That means we can finish all of them at once. The bridge crew exchanged glances. They had served with their commander for 3 years, and they knew that tone. It meant someone was about to have a very bad day. Indy. The engineering section, Chief Engineer Choi Min-ho was making modifications to the ship's weapons systems. Human technology was different from what most galactic species used. While others had moved to pure energy weapons and automated systems, humans still believed in the power of kinetic force and explosive chemistry. How are those modifications? Coming? Asked Captain Yoon Tae-min as he entered the engineering bay. The Marine officer was checking on preparations for the ground assault that would surely follow. Almost done, Min-ho replied, not looking up from his work. I've loaded the missile tubes with the new penetrator rounds, depleted uranium cores with shaped charge warheads. If these bioships have armor, they won't after we hit them. What about small arms for my Marines? Min-ho grinned. Standard kinetic. Rifles, plus some special surprises. Incendiary rounds, armor-piercing, and Dr. Kim has been working on some chemical payloads that should make these Razak very unhappy. In the medical bay, Dr. Kim Jae-won was indeed working on chemical weapons. As the ship's xenobiologist, he had studied every known species in the galaxy, including the limited information available about the Razak. What he had learned was troubling. The problem, he explained to his assistant, is that the Razak adapt. They're not just one species, but thousands of different bioforms that share the same hive mind. Every time someone fights them, they learn and evolve to counter those tactics. So how do we beat them? The assistant asked. Dr. Kim held up a small canister filled with what looked like ordinary water. With something they've never encountered before. Earth biochemistry. Our world developed along completely different lines from the rest of the galaxy. What's harmless to us might be deadly to them. Back on the bridge, Navigator Song Yi-jin was plotting their approach vector. Commander, we'll reach the outer system in 16 hours. The Razak will definitely see us coming. Let them, Daeho replied. I want them to know we're here. As if summoned by his words, the communication system crackled to life. The voice that came through was unlike anything the crew had heard before. It sounded like multiple voices speaking at once, creating harmonies that hurt to listen to. Unknown vessel, the voice said in perfect galactic standard. You approach a Razak feeding ground. Turn away or be consumed. We have absorbed the knowledge of 1,000 species. Your resistance is meaningless. Daeho walked to the communication station and activated the transmitter. When he spoke, his voice was calm and level, like he was discussing the weather. This is Commander Kang Daeho of the United Earth ship Indomitable. You are attacking innocent civilians under the protection of the Human Colonial Defense Treaty. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. There was a pause, then something that might have been laughter came through the speakers. Humans. We have heard whispers of your species. Primitives from a death world who still use chemical explosives and metal projectiles. We have consumed species far more advanced than you. We will add your distinctiveness to our own. I don't think you understand, Daeho replied. We're not here to negotiate. We're here to end you. The transmission cut off, but not before the crew heard something that chilled them. The alien laughter had stopped, replaced by what sounded like uncertainty. Even the Razak, it seemed, could be surprised. Lieutenant Park Soo-jin ran a final check on the weapon systems. The Indomitable carried an arsenal that would have horrified most galactic civilizations. Kinetic missiles that could punch through a moon. Chemical weapons banned by every space treaty. Nuclear warheads that other species had abandoned centuries ago. Humans had never signed those treaties. Weapons ready, sir, she reported. Good. Signal the fleet. Sir? Nare looked confused. What fleet? Daeho smiled for the first time since receiving the distress call. Did you think we came alone? On the tactical display, new contacts began appearing. First 1, then 5, then 20. Ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel all around the system, each one broadcasting human identification codes. The UES Indomitable was not just one ship. It was the flagship of a battle group that included destroyers, frigates, assault, carriers, and support vessels. 40 human warships in total, all converging on the Kepler 442 system with weapons armed and ready. "How?" Park Soo-jin whispered. "The moment we received that distress call, I sent word to Fleet Command," Dae-ho explained. "They've been tracking the Razak movements for months, waiting for a chance to engage them in open battle. This is that chance." Captain Yoon Tae-min felt a grim satisfaction as he watched the fleet assemble. The Razak wanted to know about human tactics? They're about to get a demonstration. On the planet below, the Velothi watched their sensors in amazement. The single human ship had become an entire fleet, and they were moving with a coordination and speed that seemed impossible. Other species took days or weeks to organize fleet movements. The humans had done it in hours. "Are they insane?" General Kethmon asked, staring at the display. "They're outnumbered 2-1. But Counselor Theralin was beginning to understand something about these humans. "I don't think they care about the numbers," she said quietly. "Look at how they move! Look at their formation! They're not here to drive the Razak away. They're here to destroy them." In space, the two fleets faced each other across the darkness. The Razak bioships pulsed with organic weapons and acidic breath. The human ships bristled with metal and fire and nuclear fury. Commander Dae-ho opened a channel to all ships in his fleet. "All vessels, this is Indomitable Actual. We have innocent civilians under attack by hostile forces. Rules of engagement. Are weapons free? I repeat, weapons free. Show them what happens when you threaten humans under our protection." The acknowledgements came back from 40 ships, 40 crews ready to fight. These were men and women who had grown up on a world where everything tried to kill them, where the weather could crush them, the animals could eat them, and even the plants were dangerous. They were Deathworlders, and they were about to remind the galaxy why that mattered. "All ships," Dae-ho said into the communications system. "Attack!" The human fleet surged forward, and space itself seemed to hold its breath. The space battle began like nothing the galaxy had ever seen before. The Razak bioships moved first, launching streams of living projectiles that twisted and writhed through space like angry snakes. Their organic weapons had adapted to counter every known defense system. Energy shields, electromagnetic barriers, plasma walls, the Razak had encountered and defeated them all. But the human ships didn't use energy shields. Instead, they deployed clouds of metal chaff and began evasive maneuvers that seemed almost random. The living projectiles, designed to track energy signatures and heat sources, became confused by the swirling metal debris and lost their targets. "Incoming biomissiles," reported Lieutenant Park Soo-jin. "They're adapting to our chaff." "Switch to kinetic countermeasures," Commander Dae-ho ordered calmly. The human ships opened fire with close-in weapon systems, rapid-fire guns that spat thousands of metal slugs into space. The approaching biomissiles, which had evolved to resist energy weapons, were torn apart by simple kinetic force. They had no defense against old-fashioned bullets. On the Razak command ship, the hive mind recoiled in confusion. These humans were using primitive weapons that should have been useless in space combat. But somehow they were working. The human fleet spread out into attack formation, and Park Soo-jin began the real demonstration of human warfare. "Firing solution locked. All ships, commence bombardment." What happened next would have been called a war crime by galactic standards if anyone had been keeping track of such things. The human ships opened fire with kinetic missiles, simple rockets carrying dense metal cores and explosive warheads. No energy weapons, no exotic matter, just metal and chemicals and physics. The missiles streaked through space at incredible velocity, too fast for the bioships to track effectively. When they hit, the results were devastating. The Razak armor, evolved to disperse energy weapons, cracked and shattered under kinetic impact. Explosive warheads detonated inside the bioships, tearing them apart from within. "Bioship down," reported Park Soo-jin with satisfaction. "Make that 3 bioships down." But the Razak were learning and adapting. The surviving ships began to thicken their armor and change their movement patterns. Some started secreting a hardening foam that could absorb kinetic impacts. "They're adapting to our missiles," observed Dr. Kim Jae-won from his position on the bridge, "just like the report said they would." Good thing we brought more than missiles, Deho replied. All ships, deploy chemical warheads. This was the moment that would change galactic warfare forever. The human fleet fired a second salvo, but these missiles carried different payloads. Instead of explosives, they carried chemical compounds developed on Earth, acids, bases, and biological agents that had evolved in the toxic environment of humanity's homeworld. The chemicals ate through Razak bio-armor like it was tissue paper. Entire sections of the alien ships began to dissolve, their living hulls unable to adapt fast enough to counter substances they had never encountered before. On the planet below, Captain Yoon Tae-min was preparing for his own battle. The Razak ground forces were spreading across the surface, consuming everything in their path. The Velothi were hiding in their underground shelters, praying that the humans could somehow win in space. "Drop ships ready, Captain," reported Sergeant Bae Sung-woo, his demolitions expert. "The boys are loaded up with everything we've got." Yoon looked at his marine company, 40 men and women armed with weapons that most galactic species would consider barbaric. Kinetic rifles that fired, metal bullets, flamethrowers that spewed burning chemicals, grenades filled with high explosives. "Remember," he told them, "these Razak adapt to whatever they encounter, so we're going to hit them with everything at once. Don't give them time to learn." The dropships launched from the human fleet, racing toward the planet's surface while the space battle raged above. As they entered the atmosphere, intelligence analyst Han Ji-yoon studied the tactical situation. "The Razak ground forces are concentrated around the major population centers," she reported. "They're using some kind of acid spray to break down organic matter, then absorbing the dissolved material." "Feeding time's over," Yoon replied grimly. The first dropship hit the ground in the middle of a Razak feeding swarm. The aliens turned toward this new threat, their insect-like bodies clicking with anticipation. They had consumed the warriors of dozens of species. These humans would be no different. They were wrong. Sergeant Bae kicked open the dropship doors and stepped out with a flamethrower in his hands. The stream of burning chemicals that erupted from the weapon caught the nearest Razak creatures completely off guard. They had never encountered fire as a weapon. Most civilized species considered it too primitive and dangerous. The Razak screamed as they burned, their bioforms trying desperately to adapt to the heat and chemicals. But before they could evolve a defense, the Marines opened fire with their kinetic rifles. Bullets tore through alien flesh that had been weakened by fire and chemical burns. "Keep moving!" Yoon shouted. "Don't let them adapt!" The Marines spread out in a coordinated assault that would have impressed military historians. They used combined arms tactics, fire to weaken, kinetics to kill, explosives to destroy cover. Each weapon system covered the weaknesses of the others, creating a layered attack that the Razak couldn't counter fast enough. But it was Dr. Kim's special weapons that truly turned the tide. He had developed biological agents based on Earth bacteria, microscopic organisms that attacked alien cellular structures. When the Marines deployed these bioweapons, the Razak ground forces began to die from the inside out. "It's working," reported Han Ji-eun as she watched the tactical display. "Their ground forces are collapsing. Whatever Dr. Kim put in those weapons is spreading through their ranks." In space, the battle was reaching its climax. The Razak bioships were trying to adapt to human weapons, but they couldn't keep up. Every time they developed a defense against one type of attack, the humans switched to something else. Engineer Choi Min-ho had been busy during the fight, modifying weapons on the fly. "Captain, I've got something new for you. Electromagnetic pulse warheads. Should disrupt their bioelectrical systems." "Fire them," Deho ordered. The EMP missiles detonated among the Razak fleet, sending waves of electromagnetic energy through their living ships. The bioelectrical networks that controlled the Razak weapons and movement systems shut down completely. The massive ships began to drift helplessly through space. "Sir," reported Navigator Song Yi-jin, "we're getting a transmission from the planet. The Velothi are saying the Razak ground forces have stopped moving. They're just standing there." Dr. Kim nodded with satisfaction. "The EMP disrupted their hive-mind connection. Without central coordination, the individual Razak units don't know what to do. Then let's make sure they never get the chance to figure it out," Deho said coldly. The human fleet moved in for the kill. Ship after ship fired everything they had at the disabled bioships. Kinetic rounds, explosive warheads, chemical weapons, nuclear missiles. The full arsenal of human warfare unleashed at once. The Razak swarm, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, was being systematically destroyed by creatures from a single world. A world so dangerous that it had forged its inhabitants into the most effective warriors the galaxy had ever seen. On the planet's surface, the Marines continued their advance. The disconnected Razak ground forces offered little resistance, their adapted defenses useless against the constant switching of human tactics. "Sector 7 clear," reported one team leader. "Sector 12 secure," called another. One by one, the reports came in. The Razak presence on the planet was being eliminated with methodical precision. No prisoners, no survivors, no chance for the hive mind to learn from this encounter. Counselor Thera Lynn emerged from her shelter to see human Marines walking through her city. They moved with confident efficiency, checking every corner and scanning for remaining threats. Their weapons were still ready, but their manner was almost gentle as they directed Velothi civilians to safety. "Are they gone?" she asked Captain Yoon when he approached. "The ones on this planet, yes," he replied. "But there are more Razak ships out there. Other swarms, other feeding grounds. This was just the beginning." Theralyn looked up at the sky, where the burning wreckage of bioships was falling like metal rain. "What happens now?" Yoon's expression was hard as stone. "Now we hunt them down. All of them. Every last Razak in the galaxy." The Velothi counselor felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cooling air. She was beginning to understand what kind of species had answered their distress call. These humans didn't just fight wars, they ended them completely. 3 weeks after the battle at Kepler 442b, the human fleet had grown from 40 ships to over 200. Word of the victory had spread through human space like wildfire, and every available vessel was being pressed into service for what Earth Command was calling Operation Extermination. Commander Daeho stood in the war room aboard the Indomitable, studying holographic displays that showed Razak movements across 12 star systems. Intelligence analyst Han Ji-eun had been working around the clock to track down every Razak bioship in known space. "We've identified 17 separate swarm groups," she reported, pointing to red markers on the galactic map. "The largest concentration is here, in the Kronos Nebula. Our scouts report a massive bioship at the center, possibly their primary command vessel." Dr. Kim Jae-won leaned forward to examine the data. "That would make sense. The Razak we've encountered so far have been relatively simple drones. There has to be a central intelligence controlling them all." "How big is this command ship?" asked Captain Yoon Tae-min. Han Ji-eun called up a tactical display that made everyone in the room go silent. The bioship was enormous, larger than some space stations. Its surface writhed with weapons and sensor organs, and smaller ships moved around it like attendants serving a queen. "It's the size of a small moon," she said quietly. "Our estimates suggest it contains the core intelligence of the entire Razak species. If we can destroy it, we end them all," Daeho finished. "But getting to it won't be easy. That nebula will interfere with our sensors and targeting systems." Engineer Choi Min-ho had been working on that problem. "I've been modifying our ships for nebula combat. Hardened electronics, backup guidance systems, enhanced short-range sensors. We can fight in there, but it'll be close quarters work." "Good," said Yoon. "My Marines prefer close quarters." Specialist Lim Do-hyun, leader of the Special Forces Unit, studied the bioship's structure. "If we're going to take out something that big, we need to hit it from the inside. I'll need a team to board that thing and plant charges in its vital systems." "You'll have it," Daeho promised. "But first we need to deal with the escort fleet. How many bioships are protecting the command vessel?" "Over 300, Han Ji-eun replied. "But they're all clustered around the command ship. If we can draw them out." Computer specialist Jung Hye-jin looked up from her workstation. "I might have a way to do that. I've been studying the Razak communication protocols. Their hive mind uses bioelectrical signals, similar to neural networks. If I can create the right interference pattern, you can turn them against each other," Dr. Kim realized. "Brilliant!" The plan that emerged was ambitious, even by human standards. The fleet would enter the nebula in 3 groups. The first would engage the escort bioships directly, drawing them away from the command vessel. The second would use Jung Hyejin's interference device to disrupt the hive mind's control. The third would deliver Lim Do-hyun's boarding party to the command ship itself. It was dangerous, complex, and required split-second timing. In other words, it was exactly the kind of plan humans excelled at. The Kronos Nebula was a swirling mass of gas and cosmic dust that stretched across several light years. Electric storms danced through the clouds, and gravitational anomalies made navigation treacherous. It was the perfect hiding place for something that didn't want to be found. The human fleet entered the nebula in complete silence, running dark to avoid detection. The bioships were scattered throughout the cloud, feeding on the organic compounds that drifted in the stellar wind. "Contact," whispered Navigator Song Yi-jin. "I'm reading massive biosignatures throughout the nebula. They're everywhere." "Hold. Position," Dae-ho ordered. "Wait for the signal." Deep in the nebula, pilot Song Yi-jin guided her stealth shuttle toward the command bioship. Behind her, specialist Lim Do-hyun and his team checked their equipment one final time. They carried enough explosives to level a city, along with Jung Hyejin's virus program that would hopefully turn the Razak's own systems against them. "There, it is," Yi-jin breathed. The command bioship filled their view screen like a living mountain. Its surface pulsed with veins of light, and massive sensor organs tracked across space like searching eyes. Smaller bioships moved around it in protective formations, their movements perfectly coordinated. "Remember," Lim Do-hyun told his team, "once we're inside, we have 30 minutes before the main attack begins. Plant the charges, upload the virus, and get out. No heroics." Weapons Officer An Kyung-soo was coordinating the main assault from the Indomitable's bridge. "All ships in position," he reported. "Weapons charged and ready." "Begin the attack," Dae-ho ordered. The first phase of the assault was pure chaos. Human ships erupted from the nebula clouds, firing everything they had at the scattered bioships. Kinetic rounds and explosive missiles filled space with light and fury. The Razak response was immediate and overwhelming. Bioships throughout the nebula turned toward the human fleet, their living weapons charging with deadly energy. But that was exactly what the humans wanted. "They're taking the bait," reported Park Soo-jin. "Escort ships are moving away from the command vessel to engage us." "Phase 2, Dae-ho commanded. Jung Hyejin activated her interference device. Waves of disrupted bioelectrical energy swept through the nebula, targeting the neural networks that controlled the Razak hive mind. The effect was immediate and terrible. Bioships that had been moving in perfect coordination suddenly began attacking each other. The virus that Hyejin had created turned their own communication system into a weapon, sending false commands and contradictory orders throughout the swarm. "It's working," she called out excitedly. "They're turning on each other," but the command bioship was fighting back. Massive tendrils of energy lashed out from its core, trying to re-establish control over the scattered swarm. The interference was only partially effective against something so large and complex. "Do-hyun, are you in position?" Dae-ho asked over the communication system. "Affirmative," came the reply from inside the command ship. "We've reached the central nervous system. Beginning placement of charges now." Lim Do-hyun and his team moved through corridors that pulsed like the inside of a living creature. The walls were soft and warm, and the air was thick with organic chemicals that made their equipment readings fluctuate wildly. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered one of the Marines. "Focus," Do-hyun replied. "We're almost there." They reached the central chamber, a vast space filled with what looked like a giant brain made of crystal and living tissue. Electrical patterns raced across its surface as it tried to coordinate the battle raging outside. "There," Do-hyun pointed. "That's the core intelligence. Plant the charges around the base. Make sure you use the shaped charges. We need to be certain this thing doesn't regenerate." While his team set the explosives, Do-hyun activated Jung Hyejin's virus program. The data stream flowed into the alien neural network, carrying instructions designed to turn the Razak's own adaptive systems against them. The effect was immediate. The crystalline brain began to pulse erratically, its electrical patterns becoming chaotic and self-destructive. Throughout the nebula, bioships stopped their attacks and began consuming themselves, their adaptive systems convinced that they were hostile organisms. "Charges set," reported one of the Marines. "Timer is active. We have 10 minutes to get out of here." But as they turned to leave, the chamber's entrance sealed itself with a wall of hardened biomaterial. The command ship had realized what they were doing and was trying to trap them inside. "Blast our way out," Do-hyun ordered. The Marines opened. Fire with everything they had, but their weapons barely scratched the organic barrier. The bio-ship was adapting in real time, hardening its defenses against their attacks. 7 minutes, someone called out. Outside, the main battle was reaching its climax. The human fleet had destroyed most of the escort bio-ships, but the command vessel was fighting back with weapons that defied description. Streams of living acid, bioelectrical lightning, and clouds of aggressive nanomachines filled space around the massive ship. "We're losing contact with the boarding party," reported Communications Officer Lee Na-rae. "Something's jamming their signals." Daeho made a decision that would have surprised most galactic commanders. Instead of trying to extract his people, he ordered the fleet to continue the attack. "All ships, concentrate fire on the command vessel. Full bombardment." "Sir," Na-rae protested, "our people are still inside." "They knew the risks," Daeho replied coldly, "and they'd want us to finish the mission." Inside the command ship, Lim Do-hyun heard the explosions of the fleet's bombardment echoing through the bio-ship's hull. "They're not coming for us," he told his team. "We're on our own." 3 minutes to detonation, reported one Marine. Do-hyun looked around the chamber, thinking fast. The bio-ship had sealed them in, but that also meant it had weakened the surrounding structure. "Everyone stand back," he ordered, pulling out his last shaped charge. The explosion tore a hole in the chamber wall, leading to another section of the ship. It wasn't the way out, but it was movement. They ran through corridors that were beginning to convulse as the virus spread through the command ship's systems. 1 minute! The Galactic Council chambers had never seen anything like it. Representatives from 300 species filled the vast circular hall, their voices creating a cacophony of fear, amazement, and disbelief. At the center of it all sat Counselor Theralyn of the Velothi, still shaken from what she had witnessed on her homeworld. The emergency session had been called after reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. The Razak swarm, a threat that had terrorized civilized space for over 1,000 years, was gone. Not contained, not driven away, but completely and utterly extinct. "Order! Order!" called the council speaker, a tall being with 4 arms and skin like polished stone. "Counselor Theralyn has requested to address this emergency session regarding recent events in the Kepler 442 system." Theralyn rose on unsteady legs, her crystal skin flickering with nervous energy. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. "3 weeks ago, my world sent out a distress call. We were under attack by the largest Razak force ever recorded. We expected to die." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Everyone knew about Razak attacks. They were always the same story. Entire civilizations consumed, leaving nothing behind but empty space. "A species called humans responded to our call," Theralyn continued. "They came from a world called Earth, which most of us had never heard of. When they arrived, they didn't negotiate. They didn't try to contain the threat. They destroyed it." "Impossible," interrupted Council Member Vexitar of the Zenthari Empire. "The Razak cannot be destroyed. They adapt to any weapon, any tactic. Our greatest military minds have studied them for centuries." Theralyn activated a holographic display that showed the aftermath of the battle. The assembled delegates gasped as they saw images of destroyed bioships drifting in space, their living hulls torn apart by weapons they didn't recognize. "The humans used tactics we've never seen before," she explained. "Kinetic weapons, chemical attacks, biological warfare, things we abandoned as primitive thousands of years ago, but somehow they worked." In the observers' gallery, diplomatic attaché Oh Sung-min watched the proceedings with quiet satisfaction. He was the official human representative to the Galactic Council. Though his species had never formally joined the organization, now every eye in the chamber was turned toward him. "The humans didn't stop with defending our world," Theralyn continued. "They tracked down every Razak ship in known space, every swarm, every feeding ground, every hiding place. In 3 weeks, They eliminated a threat that has plagued the galaxy for a millennium. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some delegates cheered. Others shouted in disbelief, and a few looked genuinely terrified. The implications were staggering. If humans could destroy the Razak so easily, what else might they be capable of? How? Demanded General Korthok of the Moltec Empire. How is such a thing possible? Oh Seung-min stood up in the observers' gallery. May I address the council? He asked politely. The speaker hesitated, then nodded. It was highly irregular, but these were irregular times. Oh Seung-min walked to the center of the chamber with the calm confidence that humans seemed to carry naturally. He was a middle-aged man with graying hair and kind eyes, but something about his presence made the alien delegates nervous. Honored Council, he began, I think there's been a misunderstanding about human capabilities. You've been fighting the Razak with the weapons and tactics of civilized warfare. Energy shields, plasma weapons, automated defenses. The Razak had thousands of years to adapt to these technologies. He paused, looking around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces watching him. Humans never developed along those lines. Our world was too dangerous. Everything on Earth tried to kill us. The weather, the animals, even the plants. We learned to fight with whatever worked, not what was considered proper or civilized. You used chemical weapons, accused Council Member Yilseth of the Crystalline Assembly. Biological agents, nuclear explosives, these weapons are banned by galactic law. We never signed those laws, Oh Seung-min replied simply. And frankly, we don't understand why you banned the very weapons that could have saved you from threats like the Razak. The truth was uncomfortable, but undeniable. The galaxy's most civilized species had tied their own hands with rules and restrictions, while humans had kept every weapon they'd ever invented. What happens now? Asked the speaker. The Razak are gone, but what are your people's intentions? Will Earth seek to expand its territory? Demand tribute from the worlds you've saved? Oh Seung-min looked genuinely puzzled by the question. Why would we do that? We're explorers and colonists, not conquerors. We came to this region of space looking for new worlds to settle and new peoples to trade with. But your military capabilities are for defense, Oh Seung-min interrupted, and for protecting those who can't protect themselves. That's what we did at Kepler 442b. That's what we'll do anywhere innocents are threatened. Colonial Administrator Kwon Su-ah was working on Kepler 442b itself, helping the Velathi rebuild their world. The Razak attack had left vast areas of the planet devastated, but human engineering teams were working around the clock to restore the damaged ecosystems. The soil composition should return to normal within 6 months, she explained to a group of Velathi farmers. Our biological experts have introduced Earth bacteria that will neutralize the Razak contamination. The farmers listened with a mixture of gratitude and unease. The humans were incredibly helpful, but their methods were often disturbing. They used genetic modification, artificial chemicals, and technological solutions that seemed almost violent in their efficiency. Are you certain these bacteria won't harm our crops? Asked one farmer nervously. Completely certain, Kwon replied. We've tested them extensively. Besides, Dr. Kim designed them to be self-limiting. They'll complete their work and then die off naturally. It was this attention to detail that impressed the Velathi most. The humans weren't just powerful warriors. They were careful, methodical problem solvers who thought through every consequence of their actions. Back in the council chambers, the debate was reaching a crescendo. Some delegates wanted to offer humans immediate membership in the Galactic Council. Others suggested they should be quarantined as a dangerous species. A few even proposed preemptive military action, though they were quickly shouted down. The question before us, said the speaker, is whether humanity represents a threat to galactic peace and stability. With respect, Oh Seung-min interjected, that's the wrong question. The question is whether you want our help when the next threat emerges, because there will be a next threat. There always is. He was right, and everyone in the chamber knew it. The galaxy was a dangerous place, full of hostile forces that civilized species struggled to contain. Pirates, rogue AI systems, dimensional parasites, reality storms. Threats that traditional military doctrine was poorly equipped to handle. What are you proposing? Asked the speaker. A mutual defense agreement, Oh Seung-min replied. When Peaceful species are threatened by forces they can't handle. They call us. We respond. No territorial demands, no political interference, no strings attached. We just solve the problem. And what do humans get in return? Oh, Seung-min smiled. The satisfaction of helping. And maybe some trading partnerships. We're always interested in new technology and cultural exchanges. It was such a simple, straightforward proposal that many delegates found it suspicious. In galactic politics, nothing was ever that uncomplicated. But Councillor Theralin stood up again. I speak for the Velathi Republic when I say we support this proposal. These humans saved our world when no one else would help. They asked for nothing in return, and they treated our people with kindness and respect. Other delegates began to nod in agreement. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy of human ships helping with disaster relief, fighting off pirates, and assisting with colonization efforts. They seemed genuinely interested in cooperation rather than conquest. The vote, when it came, was not even close. The Galactic Council formally recognized humanity as a protected species defense force, the first such designation in Council history. Oh Seung-min accepted the recognition gracefully, but privately he wondered if the Council truly understood what they had just agreed to. Humans weren't just another military force. They were survivors from a world that had tried to kill them for millions of years. They were problem solvers who didn't believe in unsolvable problems. The galaxy had been struggling with various threats for millennia, treating them as permanent fixtures that had to be managed and contained. Humans saw them as problems to be solved, permanently and completely. 6 months later, the last of the Razak biological contamination had been cleansed from Kepler 442b. The Velathi farms were producing better crops than ever before thanks to human agricultural techniques. Trade relationships were flourishing between Earth and dozens of species. But in the darker corners of the galaxy, other threats were beginning to take notice. Word was spreading about the species that had eliminated the Razak swarm. Some saw opportunity in testing themselves against these Deathworlders. Others were making plans to avoid human attention entirely. Councillor Theralin stood once again on her balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in familiar purple hues.